So, you're filling in your genealogy chart and you come to a line where they ask where one of your relatives is buried and you don't know. You have tried a few of those internet sites where they help you find graves and nothing. If your family has been in Jefferson County in Ohio for a long time, there is a somewhat hidden cemetery. It's on the grounds of the main campus of Eastern Gateway Community College in Steubenville, Ohio, next to that big water tower out back of the main building. But this probably won't help you much, since, as far as I know, no one has, as of yet, come across the records who is buried there, other than a few stones from the farm that I think says Macklefresh. By the way, this is a charcoal portrait of one of my ancestors, an early settler of Jefferson County. The graves come from the farm and later the infirmary that used to be on the grounds of the college. If you don't know what an old infirmary is, you can look it up, but I will warn you, they look a little gruesome to me. Some would auction off people as indentured servants. When I first started working at the college in 1984, we would ask people not to play there, and we kept the area respectful. When I got laid off 29 years later, after faithful service that had pretty much went out the window, I did get permission to put up a memorial to those buried there after a few years of me asking. I got permission, then was laid off before I got everyone on the same page. One big question is how many people were buried on the property? One vice president of the college looked me in the eyes and said only one person was buried there, which is completely absurd. The people must have been buried in wooden coffins with no vaults because spaces are very visible from where they have collapsed and are sunken in. In 1984, when I started, they were much more pronounced. Despite the myth, none of the 50 states require vaults. They are an invention of cemeteries to keep the grounds level and just to make a lot of money. I worked in a cemetery and the markup is incredible on these things. Haggle if you ever go to buy one. Never let them upsell you one, especially by promoting the fear of keeping you drier. If you're conscious as a corpse and you know what is happening and you're in a box, in another box with 6 feet of ground above you, I think a little dampness might just feel a little refreshing. Now, I know there are at least 7 long rows of graves. In the 80s, I talked to many people who knew of the infirmary and cemetery, and several people thought there was more than one body per grave. Just like today, people can die in waves, like when we have excessive heat waves or flu season. So coffins get stacked in a grave. Also, we were not as fat and the population was shorter, and it's not inconceivable 2 bodies in one coffin. Plus, how big the cemetery is has always been in dispute. I'm not confident that the courts aren't over graves. This city of Steubenville has never been a paragon of virtue, so if the college or a contractor had money to put down a tennis court, basketball slash ice skating rink, and volleyball court, I have a feeling they wouldn't let a few old graves stop them. So there could be hundreds buried there. Now, if you like conspiracy theories, there is one. Steubenville had alleged connections to organized crime. People disappeared occasionally, and where would it be easier to drop off a body? In a town that, in my lifetime, had open gambling, prostitution, and a police force that the feds had to oversee, I guess it's not that far fetched. If you go into an old cemetery like Union Cemetery, you will see flowers on graves over 100 years old, but in the 29 years at the college, I never saw any flowers show up. These are truly the forgotten people. It's me, Camroy, here on YouTube.